there's a clip of us where a clip of Joel where he's talking about a situation where he's flirting with a barista, and I'd like to get your thoughts on why that could be a problem.
Leo, well, can we hear the context of it a bit more clearly first? I think that might be more useful.
From me, with what happened, I mean, to be honest with you, I cannot remember this.
Yeah, sure.
When I use the word flirting, I think that's maybe a good place to start, because that's a quite subjective term, and let's be a bit more concrete here. I'm not I don't know, signaling anything romantic. My kind of use of the word flirting means being playful with language. In the same way that I can flirt with my grandma, or flirt with the bin man when he collects my rubbish, or flirt with the tree as I walk past it, or it's more about a playful approach to life rather than anything strictly romantic or sexual. So I think that's an important detail. It's more like when I interact with someone like a barista, or you can put any sort of, I don't know, typical everyday situation where you have to interact with a stranger for a function, for a service, rather than just treating them in some sort of computational manner where I go, right, here's my currency, where's my iced latte. It's more like a playful interaction about how the day was, who they've interacted with that day, what they don't enjoy and do enjoy about the job, and just trying to crack a joke, crack a smile, be a friendly bloke. That's where I use that word. Now, so maybe your main issue is the connotations around the word I've used, but I'm interested to see if that gives you some context. I'm interested to see what your thoughts are.
Leo, do you want to
go? Yeah, I guess with those connotations, it's not as bad. But I think if you are, sexually flirting and obviously you're not trying to, but seeking a relationship or something like that of the manner, I guess it can come across as I don't know, quite off-putting. Maybe you're overpowering her because they don't really have a position to disagree with you or communicate their feelings, really.
They could tell me to fuck off, and I'd politely fuck off. But yeah, I get you. I think maybe for me as a reflection point, I have to think more about the words I use, and when I use a word.
I would say flirting definitely has sexual connotations.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure. And the way that Joel defines a word isn't the way that anyone who views the video is going to define the word. So yeah.
I guess they could feel uncomfortable and they can't escape from it. I think that's probably the issue.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose as someone, with a part-time job, when you get flirted with that job, it's very hard to say no, and it's very hard to tell, as you would wish to, say fuck off, because, your livelihood is at stake. At the end of the day, you aren't exactly in the position of power to say no. Obviously, flirting isn't that bad, but I think there definitely needs to be a line between flirting and sexual harassment. And if you are flirting with someone, there needs to be respect, especially if you are coming into that situation as the person in that position of power, no? Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Well, I don't think there's a power dynamic there if I'm just trying to buy a coffee. Is that because they can't reply to me in certain ways because of employee regulations and the customer's always right?
Essentially, yeah. Because the customer is one that, if for instance someone did tell you to fuck off, an employee, to leave them alone, then maybe you would enjoy it. But if management overhears it, if someone else overhears it, if you, for instance, take it the wrong way, as most people would, you can't, you'd be reported and then probably, sacked or something.
Yeah.
So you
see my point?
It's one of the main problems that they're working, because it's very different in between approaching a barista while she's working versus approaching a girl sort of sunbathing at the beach or doing a workout in the gym.
Yeah, I think there is sort of a difference. The barrister one, I think, is you're a lot more trapped in. And same with the gym one. I don't think people really go to the gym to be approached and to talk to other people normally. But then, maybe at the beach if you want to talk, maybe you play a game, but you don't want to come across as you just want something from them, I guess.
I suppose at the end of the day, like I said, there's a difference between flirting and sexual harassment, right? And you can flirt with people whenever, sure. But it's when that veers into something more disrespectful, where someone feels like they can't say no. And even if it is just normal flirting, sometimes you do just feel a little bit oh my gosh, why am I being flirted with when all I've done is come to work
Yeah,
or, you
yeah.
know, tried to do a workout.
Well, I'm interested then on this. For you personally, where do you think that line exactly is? Like, is a compliment too far if there's someone that you don't know and it's a stranger? Is it a type of compliment that's too far? Is
No,
it
no, no, no,
certain
no,
tone
no.
of voice too
100%
far?
compliments.
Like, where
Compliments
is
are
the line
fine.
exactly?
I think compliments are fine. It's just when it veers into being more sexual in nature or more disrespectful. Like, there's a difference between telling someone they have like lovely hair or a lovely outfit or a really pretty smile, compared to like telling someone they've got really nice tits or something. Do you see my point?
Yeah. Wait, did I come across
Like, you know, we laugh, but
like
we laugh, but it's true. It's true.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and especially as a woman, you know, men are stronger. You do feel slightly, you know, scared at times. You don't know what people's intentions actually are, etc., etc.
What if there's kind of like a reciprocation and she then compliments you back and maybe takes it slightly further?
But this is my point, right? There's a difference between flirting and harassment. Flirting's fine, and then it would be reciprocated if you did like them back, so it's completely fine. Like, that would be respectful, no? But if it's something disrespectful, you're not going to reciprocate that back. Do you see my point here?
Yeah. No, I see 100%. So, was there anything in the video that you saw, or whatever I said, that indicated that it crossed the line? And if so, I'd like to know of that to correct within my own sort of thinking and behaviour.
I mean, not massively. I think there was almost a moment where you were like, you know, it was trying to make someone's day, which I suppose goes back to your definition of flirting being different to someone else's. Where it's like, I think in most situations, people would rather, you know, be treated with friendliness, especially like baristas or like employees. They'd rather just be treated with friendliness. And, you know, if it goes further, it goes further at their initiation, no?
Maybe you should start off a little bit lighter, a little bit like more friendly rather than flirting, and then build it up. And then if it gets like...
I have an interesting question. Did you guys listen to the conversation that clip came from in the overall episode?
No.
Okay.
No.
This is
We just listened to the soundbite of it.
And this is the problem. And me and Jake have many chats about this, right? Because we'll sit down like an hour and a half conversation, and then I don't deal with the clips that are posted. I even have social media because it hurts my soul. And so I know that like all these things go out, and then I sort of like, Jake goes, yeah, this video got 100,000 views, and I watch it and go, oh god, like, I don't look great here.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nature of it, right? There's a balancing point between like what's gonna like trigger people a little bit and be interesting to watch, and what's like in the full context of the conversation, because we can't post a 20-minute Instagram reel because that's not going to get any traction.
Yeah.
But basically,
I see your point. You're posting controversial stuff to get the attention of it, to then hope people will go back and listen to it.
But I even think in the context of the conversation, it wasn't controversial, because I wasn't telling a story about how I flirted with a barista. I was talking about, is there a way we can approach life where we flirt with the world, right? And that's a quote that I got from a podcast that I listened to, which is like, you approach every social interaction you engage with, even your interaction with things like nature and music and art and the work that you do, can you approach that in a playful manner? And I think I listed like a couple of things along that, and one of the things in the list was, when you go to a coffee shop, can you have a flirtatious interaction with a barista and like joke about how, you know, she has to deal with grumpy people and yet you're smiling and having a good time? I feel like that's where the clip came from. Am I right in that, Jake, or am I chatting shit? Because I feel like that's where it came from.
I think I can try and recite it word for word. Yeah, you were right. We were talking about play. You said, yes, you order your coffee and you flirt with the barista a bit, and you get on with your day, and she feels good because she's had a normal human interaction rather than a guy with headphones on not saying anything. You feel good because you've got your coffee, but then you've touched the world in a nice little way.
I mean, that's not the right wording, Joel. But yeah, anyway, it's tough when I'm sort of saying things off the cuff and then they get like immortalised by on social media. What was I going to say? This is another thing that I'm interested to hear both your guys' thoughts on, right? Because it's something that me and Jacob have talked about, and it's kind of linked into this topic. Is I struggle. I think it's more prevalent in our generation than say my parents or especially my grandparents. Is there's like this general notion with strangers that you are guilty until proven innocent, and like there's such a lack of friendliness and like spontaneous interaction. And, you know, I go on the tube and everyone's just sort of subsumed by whatever their attention is captured by on their phone, and there's no humanity there, and that really it hurts me on a deep level, because I think about how many romantic relationships or just friendships or just nice acquaintances, how many of those relationships aren't built just because we have this front of just like, I don't want to talk to strangers, I'm getting on with my own day, everyone else is evil. Like this notion, it annoys me, and it hurt. Well, not annoys a strong word, I don't go away getting angry about it, but it hurts me a little bit. Like, wow, wouldn't it be lovely if we could get on a train and just smile at each other a little bit and ask each other about our day and try and crack a joke and crack a smile? Do you feel a similar way? Do you like the fact that we don't really interact with strangers? Do you wish it was a different way? Like, talk to me a little bit about this, if you get what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I get what you're talking about. Leo, do you want to go?
Yeah, sure. I think that our like humanity has kind of been lost to technology. We spend most of our time on our phone, especially during in between our work, or in between our things that we do. Like, we're traveling, we go on our phone, we ignore what's around us, and it kind of takes us out of reality. And I think it would be nice if human interactions did occur more often, and when they do happen, they are normally good. But human interactions can also lead to bad things, I guess. And I don't know. I think it's both good and bad that we've moved on as a society, I guess.
Beautiful.
Go on, Isla, what did you think?
Yeah, I think.
I don't know. I think it's harsh to make general claims like that, to be honest, or hard to say them even. At the end of the day, there's a time and place, and you know what? 50 years ago, if you didn't want to talk to someone, you'd pull out a newspaper or you'd look out the window. And I suppose that's the same thing we do with our phones. If you want to talk to someone, by all means, do it. And more often than not, people are friendly back. But at the end of the day, if you don't want to talk to someone, I don't see why you should have to. If you get my point.
Yeah, no, I feel you. Because it's not like I'm always in the mood. I guess it's one of those where I feel inhibited to be friendly because I have a presumption that is not what the person wants. So maybe the better perspective is to go, okay, I can be who I want to be. If they show clear signs that that's not what they want, then that's cool. And
Let's talk about what you think. Let's talk about what should a man strive to be and what a woman should strive to be. I guess I'll give my perspective first.
Yeah.
I think that we do have kind of roles. I think that a man's role is to be a protector and a provider. And I think a woman's role is more suited to taking care of a child. I think that in a relationship there is, whether you want to agree with it or not, some sort of power dynamic, because or at least there should be, because if you have two dominant people, it doesn't really work. If you have two submissive people, it doesn't really work. So one has to be dominant and one has to be submissive.
Could they not both just be equal, though? I don't see why one should have to take charge of the other. Surely a relationship is based on equality and mutual love and companionship and friendship. And surely some of that is lost if one of them is dominant, i.e. in charge of the other person, or at least some aspects of the other person's life, no?
I mean, yeah, is that... I wonder if that's possible.
I'm saying it is possible.
Yeah. I guess my kind of train of thought would be, I suppose you could protect both, and I guess you could provide for both. But I don't know if I see it as how that works normally. I think.
So would your logical conclusion from your argument there be that women should stay at home and care for the family, and that men should go out and work, essentially?
No.
Is that not? But I feel like that's, if women are more nurturing and more suited to childcare, and the opposite, that men are providers. Surely that is the conclusion. Or have I taken it too far?
I don't think it's set in straight like that, but I think there's more kind of responsibility. I don't know if a man can do as well a job nurturing a child. Well, I think a woman's more kind of has a relationship with the child that a man can't have, and is probably better putting more attention into that rather than going out and working and stuff. And I think it just works. But yeah.
So is the ideal then that a woman does stay home and that the men goes out to work? Purely based on your argument there.
Yeah.
Would that be your ideal, at least personally?
I don't think it should be set straight, but I think they should spend more time doing that.
May I make a point that might draw some common ground and maybe put in a different light to see if Isla and Leo agree? The way I think about this is it's not to do with male female necessarily. To me, it's to do with masculine or feminine energy, but that's quite an ineffable, like, mystical phrase.
Yeah.
So let me try to actually make that concrete. So, to me, and you might disagree with this as well, but there is a certain set, I don't know, of character traits and tendencies and behaviors and thought patterns and actual emotional patterns that are linked to the two different sexes, right? That is biology. That's how it works, right?
Yes.
That doesn't necessarily mean that if you're born female, you are like cursed to live out this character trait and these behavior patterns. No, that's not true, because there's so much idiosyncrasy and difference between people. But if you take these two spheres of male and female behavior and characteristics, if you are female, there is a higher probability that you'll have a higher level of the female energy / characteristics / behavior. And if you're male, there's a high probability that you have more of that male type, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that you don't get females that have high levels of these typically masculine character traits, emotional traits, behavioral traits, and the other way around, right? Doesn't mean you don't get a female or don't get a male that doesn't have the feminine character traits and behavior traits. I think it's more like, I see it that way, right? And what a person should strive to be is what feels right to their core inside, right? So that means if a male wants to go down a typically more female characteristic behavior path, well, then go for it, or vice versa, go for it. But I don't think that we should let any narrative from somebody else tell us what's right to do, whether that's like telling a woman that she needs to stay home and look after the children, to me is just as bad as telling a woman that she needs to strive for a career if that doesn't resonate with her inside, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. I understand your point there, but I just think this narrative that's been pushed on us women for thousands of years is ultimately harmful. And do you see how your argument that women are more nurturing, it is psychological, does have an impact on women's rights? You know, the natural extreme of Jacob's argument there is that women should stay home and men should go out to work. It's not even the extreme; it's the next line of thought. No,
it doesn't necessarily have to be the next line of thought, though. I don't think it does.
I think it is. If women are more nurturing, then why should they be working, right? If they're more suited to childcare,
that's not
and vice versa with men.
But I don't think me saying that women temperamentally are higher in emotional intelligence and higher in agreeableness makes them mean that they have to stay at home and not work. But interesting question though, do you view then having a career as some kind of difference in value to being a mother and being a stay-at-home mother? Is that just bad if you're forced to do it, or is that not, like, to you, a great way of life? I'm just interested. I'm not sort of placing my own views or value judgment on that. I'm purely just interested.
Well, I mean, they're equal, no? Like, you can choose to do either or. The issue is when you try and tell people what to do and force them to do these things. Which we
agree on.
I mean, you agree on, yeah, but you have to look at the backdrop of everything that we're arguing, which is, for thousands of years, women have been put down, told, you know, you can't go out and work, there's no place for you in this society apart from as mothers, and look at the detrimental impacts of that throughout life. And yet, maybe we should be encouraging women to go out and have careers, just as we do with men. Because we don't really have this conversation around male roles in society to the same extent. Like, we're not having the conversation about whether men should stay home or whether men should go out and work, and whether we should encourage that or one over the other, because it's kind of implicit that we as a society would want to push men into these roles. Like, the same discussion isn't happening. Do you see what I mean? and that is inherently sexist in a way.
Yeah, and from your perspective,
Like, why is my role defined by my reproductive organs and whether I'm more nurturing or not? Surely I should also be pushed into a job, or should it shouldn't even be a discussion? It's just my own choice.
So you don't think that society, whatever that means, you don't think there's any notions of if a father wants to be a fully stay-at-home dad, that's looked at in any different way to if they were going out in the corporate world? Do you think they're viewed as exactly the same? Like there isn't a
No, of course they're not. It's 100% looked down upon. It's, you know, men staying at home is treated in a derogatory way, which is the point I'm making. Like,
no, but you said there was no discussion about male roles. You said there was no discussion about male roles.
I'm saying that there's not the same extent.
Okay.
The discussion is that we're not taking away men's rights. We're not taking them away and forcing them to stay at home. They have the inherent choice. We kind of haven't really had that for the last 100 years, or before the last 100 years, rather. Do you see the point I'm making?
Yeah.
When men go into these roles, which have been typically and historically female, it's completely looked down upon and treated in a derogatory way. And when women do the same, vice versa, it's the same. Do you see what I mean? Like,
so
these spaces, which we view as male and female, don't really, like, I don't know.
Hold on, say that last bit again.
No, it's fine. It wasn't actually a clear train of thought.
So the primary issue is with the obligation point of you have to do this because of your like biological sex. Okay, that's, you know, I think we fundamentally agree that there should be no obligation of what path you follow in life. But Jacob, to pose a question to you, let's say your future wife goes, you know, she wants to pursue some sort of different career path, or whether you've had kids together and she wants to go do something different. I know you quite well, so I don't think you're going to suddenly turn around and go, no, this has to be how things are. You would empower her and encourage her to do what she wants to do, no? I mean, I'm interested, like, elaborate a bit on that.
So, what you said, if my wife wants to switch career path, then I'd empower her.
Well, let's say you had kids together, maybe young, right? You're 25, and none of you had really established yourself in a career at that point. You have 2 kids or whatever, and then she goes, I want to go and do this. You're not gonna shut that down. I mean, you might go, you know, well, we have to think about budgeting in childcare and make this decision about what's the best for our children now, because essentially when you have a child, their life is as important, if not more important than yours. So you have to have that discussion. But I don't believe there's a world where you say to her no. Like, what? Tell me your thoughts around that.
Yeah, I encourage her. Yeah, I encourage her to do that. The thing that Isla said about no dominant, no submissive, and being equal. I mean that does make me think. I don't know if I'm arguing against that, and I think I agree. I guess the link is who makes the decision, who kind of has the bottom line. Well, because you would want to make equal decisions, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You would. I guess you could argue you would protect each other, although I think a man, just because of physicality, has more responsibility in protecting the woman. Not always the case, but mostly. I think there is more of a role in providing for a man, because because if the this is challenging me. If what if you don't have kids?
But is your definition of provider just essentially bringing home money? I mean, it's not like we're living in tribes anymore and the man is going out and killing animals for the feed. You know what I mean? So I think if we're talking about economic providing, right, I don't see why that has to be something with separate, like, gendered norms almost. Surely, like, a woman also wants financial freedom and strive to, you know, provide for herself and for the family. Do you see my point here?
Right.
That we're no longer hunters and gatherers. That if we're just talking from a purely 21st century standpoint, that it's more about money, right? Your definition of providing.
Yeah, a large part of it, yeah. Okay. think my train of thought would have gone to like if the woman would be better. If the woman's looking after the child, then it's the man's responsibility to go out and get money. I think that's where my train of thought.
Yeah, and I think that's fair enough. But there needs to be a conversation about it. It shouldn't just be an automatic assumption that a woman will stay at home and care for the child. Right. Because what if the woman wants to, or, like, what if the man wants to do that?
Yeah.
You see how it's always relegated to the woman's choice whether she wants to go out and, like, even when we have this conversation, we're mainly talking about women here. When equally it is also a man's choice. He might want to stay home and be with the child, but that's we kind of don't think about it like that. We take it for granted that the man will want to go out and do all this stuff, and it's the woman who's sort of being the one that's changing it up. And I think that's an assumption that's sort of misogynistic inherently, right? Because we automatically assume the woman is going to be the one to stay home and care for the child rather than the man. I think that's just the result of 2,000 years of this being fed down our throats, that the woman's going to stay home. But if you look at like historical views of women, right, it's not always been like that. I don't know if you know this, but like if you know this reference, but there's this book by Bessie Friedan in like the 1960s and late 50s rather, studying housewives. And she found the majority of them were pretty, depressed because they couldn't live up to this idealized standard of the, American housewife. Because I don't know. I think to some extent, I'm not saying now, and I'm not making this like a general critique of women who choose to stay home and be housewives. But I think through history, the assumption that women have to be housewives and then being that means that their personality is slightly eroded, and it becomes, your personality and your identity becomes that service, that of I'm a wife, I'm a mother. We didn't have the freedom to choose back then to the same extent as we do now. And even then, it's the woman who's going out of the way to change, the ideal. Do you see what I mean? I mean, it's quite convoluted what I'm trying to say. I think I haven't really thought this through.
I think I get it.
Are there any statistics on that, or like statistics on that in the modern day of what the perspective is on being a housewife or whatever, and how that affects their their emotional state? Because I would be very interested if there's a paper on that from, like you say, there was a book written in the 50s or 60s. Like that'd be a very, very interesting paper to read.
Yeah, it's a really good book. I mean, I've got quotes from it, but like in the mid-50s, 60% of American women dropped out to focus on their marriages because they thought, either they wanted to get married really young, or because they thought, college education would be a barrier to getting married.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I mean there? I mean, obviously there's no, like, I don't have the statistics for how many women were depressed back then. That'd be a pretty hard thing to find, I think, but...
I'll add a little bit more of why I thought that way. I think the woman kind of looking after the kid a bit more stems from kind of it being maybe slightly more their decision to be the one actually giving birth. I think maybe women have slightly more decision because it's their body to have a kid. And I also want to add as well that the housewife isn't kind of something that, like, how women have been historically as kind of a limited housewife as their role. I think that can be a bit more different now, with kind of the more of the idea that they can take it easy and take the time to nurture their child. And
but I think even that can be debated. I don't think it is easy. I don't think it is taking it easy to be looking after multiple people at once, because you're always the one that's relegated to the side. It's a role of service, essentially.
When I said take it easier, I mean like not having to kind of work as well and put like the trousers on and like go and
I know, I'm not trying to argue with you, but it is work in itself, right?
Yeah.
And I just don't think it's respected to the same extent.
No, which is so bad, isn't it? I mean, if anything, it's more important. I mean, from my personal perspective, the most important purpose in your life, whether you're male, female, or whatever, is having your own family, having children, nurturing your children to be great individuals that they want to pursue. And so it pisses me off. And I think another point, this is a personal opinion that, I don't know, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on. I don't think a man could do as good of a job as a parent as a mother can. I think that's just how it is. I don't
know. I think if you put your mind to it, you can take on that role. Children who have only fathers, most of the time, they turn out fine, and vice versa with mothers, single mothers.
Know that's true. I mean, what are you basing that on? Like, I think that the data is clear that like nuclear families of both a mother and father is such a better nurturing environment for the child. And just a father, I don't know. I'd be interested if there are studies that have shown that it's the same, because that will be a great indicator in this. I don't have any.
But the notion of the nuclear family, right, is that the woman is the housewife and the man goes out to work, right?
Not necessarily.
And there's not really. I think that is what a nuclear family is. No, the happy-go-lucky image of a white family, a girl and a boy, daughter and son. The woman's the housewife. The man's going out to work.
I don't know why.
In a high-pressure job.
No, well, that's not how I think about it. I don't know why race has come into it either. The way I see it is...
the notion of the nuclear family, right, throughout history has been that. You can look at images from America in the 1950s and 60s, in Germany, here.
Mm-hmm. But that
like, it is a historical thing, right?
Yeah, but I feel like that's just like our idea of like, The Simpsons, you got Homer and Marge and the two kids and that's just how sort of the family dynamic is showed in media and things. I'm thinking of, you have a father figure and a mother figure. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have the two nurturing parents that do different things, that have different roles. I think we should value that rather than sort of criticizing it and seeing it as restricting. Now, if a woman wants to embody the more father parts of raising a child, well, that's great, and vice versa, that's great. But we need the both. We need the two.
But is your definition of the more fatherly parts of raising a child being simply having a job? Because if it is that,
you cut out a second.
This is the point I've been making throughout.
You cut out a second. Was it about?
Is your notion? It was about if your notion of the fatherly figure is that just literally having a job?
No. So we looked at this. We looked at this. There's data that shows that the father figure takes part in a level of play with the child that has a level of cognitive demand that is different to like the nurturing care of the mother. It's like the stretching the child's physical, psychological, maybe even emotional capacity for them to then grow. There was this whole study on it. I mean, maybe you could argue, it's a study from the 70s or 80s or whatever, and that's like promoting this narrative that you disagree with wholeheartedly, and that's maybe a fair point to make. But I don't see the father role as just like get a job and make money. And actually, like, I just from a personal perspective, I've lived with a mostly absent father throughout my whole life, and I've had to look elsewhere to find a father figure in mentors that I found through my sport or in people's books that I've read and things like that, rather than saying, right, mum, can you provide these masculine traits that I need to live up to? Because that's not in her. That's again putting a sort of constraint on her. Right, mum, you have to teach your son ways about being a good man. Well, no, that's not her responsibility. She's thinking about too much anyway, because she's a single mother of 2 disabled children. She's got too much on her plate. And so I've had to look elsewhere for my father figures. That's why I'm so close with my granddad, or I'm so close with, one of my sporting mentors. And it's a different role. And
if they're simply figures, right? Can they not be embodied by anyone? I mean, if a woman has more masculine traits, could they not be that father figure? I mean, following on that, what do you think about gay couples, be it lesbian or gay, raising children? How do they then embody the masculine and feminine traits?
It's a very interesting point, and I think the overarching answer is I don't know, but I'm interested by it. I'm hugely interested by it. People should have the freedom to get into whatever relationship they want and procreate in whatever manner they like and nurture kids in whatever manner they like. I'm fully for that freedom. But what is the optimal way for your child? Well, I don't know. It's very, very interesting to think about. But I don't 100% agree that we can say it will be the exact same. Now, it can be good. It can be great. You can nurture that child to a great life. But is it the same? No. Is that a bad thing? Maybe not. I don't know. It's a very interesting topic of discussion. Because I do think about it from my own perspective and go, okay, if my mum was a lesbian and there was another female that had more sort of masculine energy from my own definition, would I then get the same masculine role model figure from that person? But it's an interesting thought process, for sure.
But if we're using anecdotal evidence, I suppose. Like, from what, I mean, Leo can back me on this. You know, would you say mum was more happy before, you know, having a part-time job and having more part-time, I mean full-time now, I suppose, than simply being a housewife? Because I would 100% say, you know, she's dramatically changed for the better. You know, in her own happiness after, you know, not simply just being a housewife constantly. You know?
Yeah, like it gives her a second, like more meaning to her life. Like she has more things to do, especially since her children, we are now grown up. I guess it kind of makes sense that she does work and she does like still kind of provide. And there's no like, there doesn't need to be gender structure around who should be the provider for the family. I think both the dad and the mum have the capabilities to be excellent providers and nurturers of children themselves.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that sentiment that, you know, you can give a child a good nurturing environment, whatever the situation is. But I do think that my mum wouldn't be able to embody that masculine role model role that a father figure would need to do. And I'm not telling you that I think that's fundamental truth that everyone should believe. I'm just being a little bit introspective there and actually questioning that and going, why is that the case? That is interesting. And then, yeah, the question you posed about homosexual couples, very interesting. Yeah, I've got a question actually. You mentioned, sorry, Jacob, can I just add this last bit before you switch up a sec?
Yeah.
A lot of the times when we have cliches, right, and phrases that are often used, there's a meaning behind that we all tend to like typically agree with. People might have their criticisms, but in a general point, we do. And I'd be interested to know why you guys think a lot of us use and accept a phrase that he/she, which can be for both, wears the trousers in a relationship. Because it kind of links back to that like power dynamics. I don't necessarily have an answer to this. I'm just interested in what you would say. It could be temperamental differences, things like agreeableness. But why do we say that for both genders? You know, because I know couples in my life where I'd say she wears a trouser or he wears a trousers. What are we trying to pin down when we say something like that? What are we trying to get across?
I think we're trying to, you know, get across this like misogynistic ideal, right? If we go back,
it's not. But how can it be misogyny if it's she wears the trousers?
Because do you see the language that you're using? Trousers.
Yeah.
You know, women only started wearing trousers in the 30s, 20s onwards, 1920s onwards, or 10s. You know, do you see the sort of linguistic history behind that phrase and how that can be misogynistic in nature?
I see how the metaphor.
I'm not saying it's a misogynist.
I can see how the metaphor links to sort of wearing trousers, going to the factory, and having a jolly old time at work. I can see that, right? But what if it's you know, there are couples who both wear, you know, make a similar amount of money, both have jobs, but one we would consider wears the trousers, and if they're female, is that like a misogynistic point? What do you think? I get the misogynistic undertones of the metaphor of wearing trousers, going to work, etc. Okay, agree. But my question was, what is that metaphor trying to get like pinned down? What phenomena are we trying to understand by saying that?
I think it's mainly to do with the power dynamic in the relationship. And
okay,
I mean, it could go both ways, male and female.
Okay, and what is that power dynamic, Leo? What is that to you?
I think it differs between every relationship, but it could be due to like decision making, like whether the woman makes the decisions or whether the man in the relationship. But then it could be down to like many. I don't know really. It could be many things. I don't think there's one specific like pinpoint. There's no specific point that you could attribute that to.
I suppose what you're trying to get across, Leo, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the person wearing the trousers, right, these like metaphorical trousers, is the one making the decisions, which has throughout history been the role of the man, right? Is what we're saying. So she's taking on, even if we're not thinking it, implicit in that phrase is that the woman is taking on the man's role if we say she wears the trousers in the relationship, right? You see my point?
Yeah,
it's interesting. The reason I bring that, I mean, yeah, you made a very good point there. The reason I bring it up is just so I wanted to establish the fact that we do recognise that there can be power dynamics and that it can go the other way. But nah, interesting point.
I think I think a good distinction to make is if the woman wants to wear the trousers, she can, but it hasn't been maybe acceptable in the past because men are more conscientious and orderly, and women have been more sort of neurotic and emotional, and
Yeah.
don't sort of make the decisions or haven't like that hasn't been more their role.
Yeah,
But that you see how that wasn't a choice really, right?
Yeah, that they can. Yeah,
and does the phrase itself not have like bad connotations, and like show how relationships should be equal between both the male and the female? Like to wear the trousers, like kind of connotates it as a bad thing. I don't know. Yeah.
That's an interesting point. I don't know. With some things, I'm happy for people to wear my trousers. Sometimes I don't want to make decisions. Sometimes I don't want to be the one that has the power in that situation. You know, sometimes I like someone to take the lead and show me something new or make a decision in some area. Or like, you know, I don't know, this might be completely irrelevant, and if it is, tell me. But from a sporting perspective, if someone has some point about how we should play a game, or if they're better than me in some specific skill, I will create the game for them to be the one that has the power, and I'm just like used as a pawn in there. Like, that's okay. But I think generally, a general point from all of us and the general theme running through this is what we all want is freedom, isn't it? We all want the freedom to make our own decisions and be the person we want to be and have the relationships we want to have. And that's, I think we can all fundamentally agree on that. We might have our different ideas of how biology affects our ability to do certain tasks and what roles lead to different outcomes and what's optimal or whatever. But generally, we just don't want people to be constrained. We don't want the state or some other knobhead's opinion to affect what we can go and do in life. We want to wake up in the morning and decide what we do with our day and our life and how we want to construct that. And I think that's true of all of us. No, that's a positive thing to take away. And I don't want you guys to go away and think that that's not my perspective or Jacob's perspective, because I don't think it is. Really, I think nothing I ever say in any context, especially something like this that I'm not an expert in. I'm not claiming to know stuff, but I'm claiming to be curious and question it and think about it and not just feel pressured to say a certain thing because you might view me in a certain way. Like, I think it's good to open up and have these conversations and actually be inquisitive rather than just trying to get across that I'm right, because I'm right in very little scenarios in life, and that's a good thing.
I say Isla changed my mind on the kind of one having to be submissive and one having to be dominant, because it's kind of like we said as well, Joe, the other week about how that's not a good way to look at life, because you're either going to be like inferior or superior. I think, and then equality is the way to go. So we can talk a bit more about the single parent thing if you want, because the issue is with a single parent is you're not getting, it's kind of an imbalance. You're only kind of getting the one perspective on the gender. So, like, it's got to be quite a big issue, I guess, because you're in balance between like understanding both sides of things and the sort of energies of both genders and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hugely affected my life. I'm not going to go and trauma dump, but yeah, Isla and Leo, do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, honestly, I'm not that clued in with it, and I'll raise my hands up and say that I really have not that much idea about single parenthood. So I don't really want to say I don't really want to say anything.
Yeah,
in that regard, because I've just got no knowledge of it.
Mate, one scary thing that I can bring up that terrifies me is that there's a massive correlation between a fatherless household and delinquent behaviour in adolescence. Like the link between the two is terrifying, which is something that worries me. And that's another sort of string to the bow of, we can't just fulfil either role with just one parent, and there is consequences to things not being balanced and not getting that fully nurturing environment you can. I mean, obviously there'll be more factors to that, like the socio-economic status of the
I was going to say, how much of a role does socio-economic factors play into that, though?
But it still points to an interesting conclusion, for sure.
Is that because, like, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Why do you think people that don't have a father figure are more likely to commit crime?
Well, I think it's difficult to say that I know why or this happens because of this, because it's not always as simple as variable A leads to outcome B. But I can pose a theory. My theory would be when I can only talk personally, right? So I'll just talk personally. Growing up without really a strong father figure, and coming into puberty and becoming a young man and going through all those different hormonal and emotional changes and trying to adjust to your position in the world, there is a lot of there is this I don't know, maybe it's just a narrative that I've embodied that's sort of come from some false area, I don't know, but there is this level of anger that I had about things that had gone wrong in my life, about the fact that I didn't have a very present father figure, about I've got a mild disability and I'm different to everyone else and I'm a wheelchair user, and there's all that angst around that, and then trying to sort of fit into social groups. There's this weird emotional cocktail that I go through, and if I didn't find father figures elsewhere through sporting coaches and mentors or my grandfather or something, maybe I could have manifested that anger and that emotional turmoil in delinquent acts and antisocial behaviour to give me that thrill and that attention that I was ultimately calling out for. I don't know. It's an interesting point. That's why I think I would advocate for any, especially young men, but any young person that feels any sort of emotional tension or anger about the way their life is, go and channel it through something and go and find somebody you can talk about that shit with. I mean, maybe that's the father figure, but maybe it's anyone, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think without say a mother, it's just one less person, without one parent altogether. Only having one parent is just one less person to kind of hold you down and ground you, teach you their values and disciplines and stuff. But maybe especially with a man, because maybe he has more kind of, he's more seen as firm and physically strong.
Think about it this way: as a young man, how can my mum really tell me about what it means to be a good man, considering that she hasn't gone through that life experience? Same way as my sister, how could her dad have shown her the values? And we don't really tell our kids, do we really? A lot of the stuff is unconscious when they're a child and you're just sort of acting out your role as father or mother or man or woman. But how could my sister have got that from her father? I mean, I'm interested if you guys think that I've just made a bad statement there and that's not true.
I don't know. Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's a wider thing though. Is it not the values of being a good person which matter more than simply being a good man or woman? Because what is a good woman?
Very good question. Very good.
Nurturing.
Yeah.
Domestically capable. Is my mum showing me how to be a good woman, teaching me how to cook? You see what I mean? You see the logical conclusions that can be drawn from that.
No. But maybe I'm talking about the buckets of characteristics and tendencies rather than can you cook? But I don't know. It's an interesting one. I mean, let's say, okay, I grew up in a very feminine household. Mother, sister, cat. Right, that was it. That was my nurturing environment. It was great. It means that I have a level of emotional consideration that I don't think other lads have, and I have a very feminine way of looking at things in a lot of ways. But then this is only a very specific, it's a bit of anecdotal data, so disagree with it as much as you like. But when I go into elite sporting contexts where you have to be an aggressive, testosterone-filled male to go out and compete against other men and beat them in competition, well, I didn't learn those values from my feminine nurturing environment, right? I had to go and look at it elsewhere. Now, are they good tendencies maybe in life? I don't know. Maybe you should have a level of aggression. Maybe you shouldn't be a pushover. Maybe you do need a level of, right, I'm going to take what's mine. And I don't think I would have gotten that from my mum, but she is a lovely person. She has her imperfections and her idiosyncrasies like everyone. But mum wasn't going to, my masculine figures and father figures in my life would turn around to me and go, fuck those guys, Joel. Go and show them who you are. Have a bit of grit in your life. Go and train harder than them. My mum maybe wouldn't have that perspective. So maybe that's a very specific domain, and being a good sportsman doesn't mean you're a good person, but it's just an example.
But I don't know. I play uni level sport, which is obviously it's not GB, but it is a high level still. And
what do you play?
I've gotten values from. Pardon?
What do you play?
Football.
Sorry, football.
Oh, sick. What position? Sorry, these might be off topic, but
left wing. That's fine. Left wing.
Oh,
so
sick.
Traditionally masculine sport, anyways. But yeah, we get told by everyone, be it man or woman, go out there, be your best, be aggressive. And I feel I've been told that by as many men as I have women.
Yeah. And I think
You see my point. I think sport is just quite an aggressive thing in nature, and I've been pushed to be this aggressive person through both men and women.
How would you feel if then you went to I don't know, let's put you in a hypothetical situation, and you're going to a parenting class, right? You're about to have your first child, right? And the class is run by a mate, and he's telling you how to be a good mother. What's your thought process? I'm interested.
I think, well, he's obviously in a position where he is like qualified to speak about this. So
because he's read some books,
listen,
and he's done some exams, or he's been a father.
Yeah.
Like why? How can he tell?
I suppose that is a qualification.
yeah,
though.
exactly. You have to qualify.
Is it the same, though?
I couldn't just go up there and try to tell mothers how to be a good mother, but because this man is trained, he's obviously a professional. He has the ability and capabilities to talk and and help these people. I mean, I don't know.
Is it? No, it's good. It's a good point. Yeah, maybe he's done his research and he's done his exams and he can prove that he knows what he's on about. But is that the same as a mother that's had 2 kids? You know what I mean? Giving that class as the man who's read a textbook and maybe been a father himself. Maybe it'll do as good. It'll do a job. But is it the same? I don't think it is. I don't think it is. And that's just me talking about.
I think it may even be better. I mean, the textbook and learning how to actually work and speak to people could lead him in a more better position than a mother who's had 2 children, who may have not treated them or not grown them up in the best environment.
Yeah, who's to say she's the model mother?
Just because she has 2 children doesn't mean that she is immediately qualified.
Yeah, maybe it's my own unconscious bias then, and I'm just a horrific individual. But, if my future wife went to a parenting class and it was ran by a man, I'd be like, who's this dickhead that thinks he knows what he's doing? Do you know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe I'm just chatting shit, but it's interesting.
Going back to the kind of distinction where, a man's telling a man how to be a good man versus how to be a good person. I think a better question is there characteristics that men need to have rather than women need to have?
What would those characteristics be?
Yeah.
What, logic, rational thinking?
No,
surely that's something to aim for in both genders, no?
Yeah, it's interesting.
I don't have the answer. I just asked the question. I think.
Let's ponder on it. Let's have a pause. I think all characteristics make up a whole individual and a good person. But I guess you only need to equip them in certain roles. I mean, obviously there are foundational ones, like you say, logic, reasoning, emotional intelligence, that stuff's useful in every context. But would my mum need to inflict aggression in her life? I don't know. And then would my father figure?
Why wouldn't she? What would she not? Why would she not need to do it?
To be fair, my mum is a dragon.
Why would she
If you strike a nerve on her, she will bite you. So that's maybe
exactly.
No, I'm not saying I'm right either. I'm playing with ideas here. I'm just thinking about it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a level. If I went to my dad with a problem, and he was like, "Joel, I don't know, would I want to cry? I don't know. This is getting weird now, but maybe it's weird. It's weird. I don't know. It's an odd one.
Is that not bad?
If I'm crying, I'll much rather my mum.
Yeah, word, Leo.
What's Leo saying?
You not being able to cry in front of your father, is that not?
No, I can. I can. But no. Well, go on. Sorry, I'm interrupting.
No. You being afraid, or as you just said, you didn't want to. I mean, it kind of just shows these qualities that men and women have are outdated. They don't really make sense. Not useful at all.
I'm with you there, John. It's easier to open up to a woman than it is.
Yeah.
A man.
It's weird. Even in school and that, I'd be interested to hear you guys' perspective on this. But in school, I had male friends that we would do dumb shit together and play Fortnite and that. Do you know what I mean? Just waste time trying to get victory royales and all that bullshit. But then my actual real friends were all female because they gave me a level of emotional connection that the lads couldn't. Now, I'm not saying any
So
of
is that not a problem with masculine
Yeah,
relationships?
and society.
I don't-
itself.
I mean, you look at all the data.
it's interesting.
I'm just posing a point back. My point back is that not a problem with masculine relationships? I mean, you know, we see all these statistics about the male suicide rate and male depression rates. Do they not just feel? Do you just think maybe you just don't feel comfortable opening up to other men because
But
they
then
preconceived, you know, misogynistic notions that you'll be judged for expressing emotions?
No, it's
Whereas women have always been thought of to be the more nurturing and caring ones.
But it's not like I cried.
So you open up to them
all the time. But it was more like we just have better, deeper chats. But then I say, me and Jacob have a relationship where, you know, I could probably cry in front of Jacob and he wouldn't think I'm a knobhead. Like, that's all right. So I don't know. Maybe it's just the nature of the circumstance at the time that we were all 50-year-old men. What did we know about anything? You know what I mean? We just like had double maths on a Friday and then wanted to go play Fortnite. Like that was the reality of the situation. And no one wanted to sort of open up and talk about their feelings, and it just wasn't a thing that was considered. We just sort of live out this role of, right, you're my male friend, let's get on PlayStation. There was no consideration for bigger and deeper things than that, and that's probably why I sort of no longer walk in those paths and have those friend groups. But no, it's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting, and is it a problem? Maybe. Is it a problem that all my male friends aren't like my relationship with Jacob or my relationship with my closest friend? Maybe it is a problem. Maybe it's a problem that I do feel like I can open up to female characters in my life more. Maybe it is. But yeah, it's interesting. Anyway, is there anything else anyone wants to like state or start up as another topic before we end? Because I realise we've been going for an hour now, and I need a wee, and I'm hungry.
Yeah.
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
No, there's not a topic. I just wanted to add when we were saying about, but when I said, okay, so teach a man how to, a man should teach a man how to be a man, and he should do that through masculine characteristics. And then we said, well, what characteristics does the man have rather than the female? And then it just comes back to like you should teach him masculine characteristics. But then I ask myself, why is it okay for a man to have female characteristics? And I guess the answer is yes. So I think at that point I might have been wrong on like maybe like from that logic a woman can teach a man how to be a man.
I think there's a difference.
I don't really understand the notion of gendered characteristics. Are they not just normal characteristics, which we've decided to gender?
No, well, no.
Like,
no,
what actually are male characteristics versus female?
Okay, so you look at it and you go, if you take a population and you find who is on average higher in aggression is going to be a man, right? And you take a population and who is highest in agreeable, well, on average, is going to be a female. There are disparities in psychological characteristics. Mm-hmm. That is a thing. I'm not adding any opinion or value judgment on that. That's just how it is. That, like I say, it doesn't mean you don't get an agreeable man and an aggressive woman. You do. You know, my mother is a dragon at times. You know what I mean? And I've had male characters in my life that are very agreeable. Like, it's just, you can't look at it in black and white terms like that. But you have to point out that there are differences. And I think an important point to make on that, Jake, what you're saying there is, there's a difference between me sitting down and have a conversation with my mum and her telling me with words what it means to be a good man, and me hearing that through one ear, and does it actually, go into my being, and do I actually go and emulate that in the world? I don't know. I think there's a difference. I think when you're a child, a lot of your learning, and an adolescent as well, and even an adult, we all learn a lot through imitation and watching and embodying, and a lot of it is unconscious. So watching a father figure be who they are in the world is very different to just being told, right, a good man is, you're chivalrous and you whatever characteristics you want to throw under the sun. There's a difference between just being told what it is and seeing it. Like, I think that's the ultimate thing you do as a parent, is you're a role model for how your child should be in the world. And that's not an articulated thought. That's not something that the intellect creates that you can just blurt out to them over the dinner table. It's about how you are in your relationships, how you talk to them, how you approach your work, how you approach your emotions. That's the stuff that matters. And I think we're trying to break down these concepts into a way we can describe and explain, but I think in that we limit a lot of it, and we leave a lot of things out. We don't know what it means to be a great dad, mother, parent, whatever. We're just kind of clutching at our intellectual, trying to break it apart and understand it, when some of these things are just too ineffable to really wrap our heads around. But yeah. I
mean, you can ask, is it better to have for male men to have those psychological characteristics, and vice versa. But then I would say not necessarily if your other half makes up the agreeableness to your orderliness. So, or vice versa. So I'd say it's not really a problem.
Cool. Well, I'm happy to wrap up everyone else's. Thanks, guys, for your time, and thanks for the
Thank you very
discussion.
much.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank for everyone that listened. I don't know what whirlwind of a podcast you just listened to. Me and Joel didn't mean to sound horrible.
Well, I don't think we did, mate. We just asked.
No.
You guys were fine. I was expecting more, to be honest.
Yeah.
Really,